Before Camilla became queen consort, she was the ghost at every royal dinner, the one nobody wanted to talk about, the other woman the tabloids called a villain, and some gave her worse names because Princess Diana once said in that famous 1995 interview, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," and even though she didn't say Camilla's name, everyone knew, and the public hated Camilla deeply. In the 1990s, she couldn't walk down a London street without hearing insults. People shouted homewrecker from cars, women threw dirty looks at grocery stores, and once a man threw an egg at her car. True story. But here is the twist you won't believe. Queen Elizabeth never raised her voice, never shouted, never called Camilla names. Instead, the Queen watched and waited. Inside Buckingham Palace, behind a door most staff aren't allowed to touch, lies the Royal Archives, which historians call the box, but it's really a vault with thick walls, metal shelves, and temperature control, not for gold or crown jewels, but for secrets. The Queen kept a special section inside that vault, not for spies or foreign leaders, but for family. Every mistake, every letter, every secret phone call, copies of emails before emails were even popular, even handwritten notes from the 1970s. Camilla knew this vault existed, everyone in the royal circle did, but she didn't know what was inside about her until 2002. That year, Princess Diana had been gone for 5 years, the public grief had calmed down, and Camilla looked at Prince Charles and thought, now is our time. Let's finally get married. She was wrong. The Queen said no, flat out, no explanation, just no. Camilla was confused, even angry, and she asked for a meeting. So the Queen agreed in a private room with no cameras and no Charles, and that's when the Queen opened a small drawer and pulled out a single document on old paper with yellowing edges, sliding it across the table. Camilla read it, and her face turned white, pale as the paper itself. What was on that document? Leaks from former palace aides say it was a promise, a contract Camilla signed in the 1970s before Diana. Before any of this, a promise that Camilla would never try to marry Charles, never seek the throne, never become queen. She broke that promise, and the Queen had proof. That document is still secret today, locked somewhere in that vault, but one thing is clear, after 2002, Camilla stopped asking to get married for 3 whole years. She knew. The Queen had won. What was on that paper that made Camilla turn pale? Royal experts call it the silence clause, and to understand it, you have to go back to the 1970s, long before Diana, long before the world hated Camilla, because back then, Camilla and Charles were young and very much in love. But there was one big problem. Queen Elizabeth did not approve. She thought Camilla wasn't right for the heir to the throne, too experienced, too bold, not the innocent type the crown wanted, so the Queen did something quiet and clever. She didn't ban Camilla from seeing Charles, but she made it very hard, and soon enough, Camilla married someone else, a handsome army officer named Andrew Parker Bowles. That should have been the end of the story. But here is the scandal. Insiders claim that before Camilla married Andrew, she signed a private agreement with the palace, a secret contract that no newspaper has ever seen, and that contract said 2 things very clearly: I will never seek to be queen and I will never push for marriage to the heir to the throne. In exchange for signing that paper, the Queen promised to protect Camilla's reputation, to keep her scandals out of the press, and to let her stay close to Charles as a friend. Everyone smiled and moved on. Fast forward to 2005. Diana is gone. The public has calmed down. Camilla looks at Charles and says, I want to marry you. For real this time. But the Queen doesn't say congratulations. She says 3 words, remember the vault. Camilla tried to argue. She said times had changed, that the public would accept her now, that she deserved happiness. But the Queen didn't raise her voice. She simply opened the vault again, and this time, she didn't pull out one document. She pulled out letters, old letters where Camilla laughed about the royal family, calling royal traditions boring and old-fashioned and even mocking the Queen's hats. Then came emails, printed and filed, where Camilla complained about royal duties and said she only attended events because she had to. But the worst wasn't paper. One leak from a former palace aide says the Queen had a recording, a phone call from the 1980s, a private conversation between Camilla and a friend where Camilla said something she should never have said, something about the future king. Camilla didn't know anyone was listening. But someone was. The vault isn't just paper. It's insurance. It's a cage made of secrets. And in 2005, the Queen cashed it in. Camilla stopped arguing. She agreed to every condition. And the wedding was allowed to happen. But the document nobody can see stayed locked inside. Waiting. So Camilla stopped arguing, but that didn't mean the Queen was done. Oh no. The Queen had waited decades for this moment, and she wasn't going to waste it. In 2005, after Camilla agreed to behave, the Queen finally said yes to the wedding, but not for free. She handed Camilla 3 rules, 3 conditions that would humiliate any woman, but Camilla had to accept because the vault held too much. Rule number 1. Camilla would never ever be called Princess of Wales. Think about that. She was marrying the Prince of Wales, the man who would be king, but that title, the one Diana held, the one the whole world remembered, was off limits forever. The palace released a short statement, just 2 sentences, saying Camilla would use the title Duchess of Cornwall instead. The press went crazy, but Camilla couldn't say a word. Rule number 2 was even worse. The Queen announced that when Charles becomes king, Camilla would not be called Queen. She would be called Princess Consort. Imagine marrying the future king and being told you can never sit beside him as Queen. That is not a wedding gift. That is a punishment. And Camilla had to smile for the cameras and pretend she was fine. Royal photographer Samir Hussein once revealed in an interview that before every major event, a palace official whispers the same thing in Camilla's ear: remember your place. And she always nods. Always. Because rule number 3 was the real trap. The Queen kept a time bomb inside that vault, a final condition nobody talks about, and here is what leaks suggest. If Camilla ever tries to take more power, if she ever pushes to be called Queen, if she ever speaks badly about the royal family again, those files go public. What files? Some say it's proof Camilla knew about Charles and Diana's marriage problems years before the public knew, that she encouraged Charles to be unhappy, that she waited in the shadows like a hunter. Some say it's worse, much worse, but nobody can confirm because the vault is still sealed. For years, Camilla followed the rules, she attended boring events, she waved at crowds, she never complained in public. But inside, she was waiting too. She knew the Queen was old. She knew Charles loved her. And she knew that one day, the Queen would die, and the vault might open, or maybe, just maybe, it would stay closed forever. That gamble started in 2021, and it changed everything. For years, Camilla played by the rules. She smiled. She waved. She never complained in public. But inside her private world, something was building. Frustration, hunger for more, a quiet belief that she had earned a better life. So in 2008, Camilla decided to push back just a little. She wanted a bigger role in the royal family, more important duties, less sitting in the background while others got the spotlight. She also wanted a nicer home, a private escape where she didn't have to follow palace rules, a place in the sun far from London's grey skies. The Queen heard these whispers. And instead of getting angry, she got clever. One afternoon, the Queen invited Camilla to a private lunch at Windsor Castle. Just the 2 of them. No Charles, no aides, no cameras. Camilla thought it was a peace offering. She was wrong. After lunch, the Queen stood up, walked toward a small wooden door hidden behind a bookshelf, and said, "Follow me." Behind that door was a narrow staircase, cold stone steps leading down into the basement. Camilla hesitated, but the Queen didn't look back. Down they went, deeper and deeper, until they reached a room with no windows, metal shelves from floor to ceiling, and the smell of old paper and dust. The vault. The Queen walked straight to a shelf, didn't even have to search because she knew exactly where everything was, and pulled out a green folder. Inside were property records, official documents showing that Camilla had secretly bought a luxury villa in Tuscany, Italy, using a fake name to hide her identity. Buying a vacation home is not illegal, not even a little bit, but here was the problem. The Queen had proof that Camilla used royal money to pay for it, money that came from a fund meant for charity, money donated by British citizens who thought they were helping poor families and sick children. Camilla froze. Her face went white again, just like in 2002. The Queen smiled softly, that famous calm smile, and said, "I'll keep this safe, as I keep everything safe. But you will stop asking for more. No bigger role. No nicer home. No Tuscany." Camilla didn't argue. She couldn't. Within 6 months, the villa was sold to an anonymous buyer, the money was returned quietly, and Camilla never mentioned Italy again. That villa didn't just disappear from her life. It disappeared from history. But the green folder? Still in the vault. By 2021, the Queen was tired. She had lost her husband, Prince Philip, that April, and the whole world watched her sit alone at his funeral, wearing a mask, saying goodbye to the man who stood beside her for 73 years. Camilla watched too, and she saw an opportunity. With Philip gone, with the Queen looking fragile and sad, Camilla thought the balance of power had finally shifted. She thought, now I can step up. Now I can take more space. So she went to Prince Charles and said she wanted to give a big speech at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, a huge global event with world leaders, cameras from every country, a stage where she could finally shine. Charles thought it was a great idea. He loves Camilla. He wants her to be happy. But the Queen said no, flat out, just like she said no to the wedding in 2002. Camilla was shocked. She asked again, politely this time, explaining why the speech mattered, why the world needed to hear from her. The Queen still said no. So Camilla made a dangerous choice. She went behind the Queen's back. She talked directly to Prince Charles again, pushed him to convince his mother, and even started preparing the speech without permission. That was the mistake. That was the line she should never have crossed. The Queen found out within days, because the palace has eyes everywhere, and she summoned Camilla to her private sitting room at Windsor Castle. No aides. No phones. No Charles. What happened inside that room? No one knows for sure. But a palace leak later revealed a chilling detail. The Queen didn't raise her voice. She didn't even stand up. She simply opened a drawer in her desk, a small wooden drawer that Camilla had never noticed before, and pulled out a single photograph. The photograph showed Camilla leaving a secret meeting in London in 1997, a meeting she had promised the Queen she never attended, a meeting with a newspaper editor who later wrote cruel stories about the royal family. Camilla had lied. For 24 years, she had kept that secret buried. But the Queen knew. The Queen always knows. She looked at Camilla and said 3 words, quiet and cold, I know everything. Camilla didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She just nodded, stood up, and walked out. She never asked to give a public speech again. And that photograph? Back in the drawer. Waiting. Then came September 8, 2022. The day the world stopped. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in British history, died at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. She was 96 years old. She had ruled for 70 years. And when the news broke, millions of people cried, laid flowers, sang God Save the Queen one last time. But inside the walls of Buckingham Palace, there was no time for tears. Not for Camilla. Because the moment she heard the Queen was gone, she didn't sit down to grieve. She didn't hug Charles. She didn't call her children. She ran. Camilla rushed out of her room, down the private corridors, past confused staff members who had never seen her move so fast, straight toward the vault. She knew this was her only chance. With the Queen dead, with the palace in chaos, with everyone distracted by the funeral preparations, she could finally destroy those files, burn every letter, every photograph, every recording, every piece of evidence that had trapped her for 2 decades. She reached the door to the vault, the same stone staircase she had walked down with the Queen in 2008, and she reached for the lock. But her fingers stopped. The lock was different. New. Shiny. The code had been changed. Camilla tried to guess the new numbers. The Queen's birthday? No. Charles's birthday? No. The date of her wedding? Nothing worked. She stood there in the cold basement, alone, breathing hard, realizing that someone had outsmarted her. That someone was standing behind her. King Charles. He had followed his wife without making a sound. He looked at her, not with anger, but with something worse, disappointment. And he said 2 words, not yet. Camilla opened her mouth to argue, but Charles raised his hand and stopped her. He said the vault would stay sealed until he decided otherwise. Today, nobody knows exactly where those files are. Some believe Camilla made a deal with Charles. She can be called Queen Consort now, she can sit on the throne beside him, but the files stay locked until she dies. Others believe the files are already gone, burned in a secret fire, erased forever. But one former palace guard told a reporter in 2023 something strange. He said, I saw boxes being moved at 2 in the morning, not out of the palace, but deeper in, down to a lower level I didn't even know existed. They aren't gone. They're just hidden better. The vault didn't open. It just moved. Today, Camilla is Queen Consort. She sits next to King Charles at state dinners, wears diamonds that once belonged to the late Queen, waves at crowds from Buckingham Palace balconies, and smiles for photographers who used to call her the other woman. To the world, she won. She climbed from being the most hated person in Britain to wearing a crown. That is a comeback story like no other. But did she really win? The Queen is gone. Buried beneath the chapel floor next to Prince Philip, finally at rest. But her vault remains, somewhere deep in that palace basement, or maybe moved to a secret location that only King Charles knows. Camilla still cannot access it. Every time she looks at Charles, she wonders, does he know everything? Has he read every file? Has he seen that photograph? Has he heard that recording? And Charles? He never talks about it. He kisses her forehead. He holds her hand. But he never opens that drawer. Here is the final twist, the part that changes everything you thought you knew. The vault wasn't built just to hurt Camilla or punish her or keep her quiet. It was built to protect the monarchy. And to protect Charles from himself. The Queen knew her son better than anyone. She knew Charles loved Camilla too much, too blindly, that he would forgive her anything, that he would let her destroy the family's reputation just to keep her happy. So the Queen built a wall of secrets between them. Not to be cruel. To be smart. Because as long as those files exist, Camilla can never fully control Charles. And as long as Charles knows the vault exists, he can never fully trust Camilla. It is the perfect trap. Today, Camilla is famous, powerful, rich, respected, even. But she is also trapped inside a cage made of paper and old photographs and secret recordings. One wrong move, and those files go to the press. One argument with Prince William, the future king, and the vault opens. One interview where she says too much, one book deal she shouldn't sign, one moment of honesty, and her entire legacy turns to ash. The Queen is dead. But her final lesson lives on, written in every folder inside that hidden vault. You can wear the crown, you can sit on the throne, you can wave at a million people who finally love you, but you never ever control the vault. The vault controls you.